Alright. Yup. You read the title right. We're going there. This is the topic that rips sons away from their fathers, daughters away from their mothers, and drives what used to be peaceful nations into all-out war. Yes, we are going to talk about free-handling venomous snakes, and whether or not you should or shouldn't do it. All joking aside, this is a pretty hot topic in the herp community, I guess you could say. You know, it's something that's been going around for quite a while. And you know, I thought I would bring what I've got to the table of the discussion on whether or not this should be an accepted practice. So a few weeks ago, I went ahead and put up 3 different polls. Now, before we, dive into what everybody said and what I have to say about it, I think for those of you who don't know what freehandling is, I'm just gonna go ahead and explain it right now. I'll put up some footage of people doing it while I'm explaining it, just so you really get the idea. Freehandling a venomous snake is essentially holding a venomous snake with both hands the same way you would a non-venomous snake, right? So, tailing a venomous snake with a hook, that is not freehandling. Pinning a snake by its head is not freehandling. Tubing a snake and holding it that way is not freehandling. Okay, so all of these other methods are not freehandling. So, you know, this has always been a thing. This is not new. People have always been doing this, but it has really gotten a lot of media attention in the past few years because of, certain people. You've got people like Chris Sweet on, Instagram, and, David's feed on Instagram, Tyler Nolan, Chandler from Chandler's Wildlife. Recently, we've been getting a lot of people that have gotten much bigger in popularity, essentially, and they consistently practice freehandling, and it's become a much more big topic in the recent years. So we're going to cover all of it in this video. Everything that I could think of, everything that all of my followers that participated in the polls could think of, so y'all can decide for yourselves whether or not it's a problem. So before I go into the actual comments on what people said, I went ahead and I kind of sifted through all the comments and made a list of things that people were consistently saying in either defense of freehandling or in resistance to freehandling. So I'm going to go ahead and rattle them off here so y'all can get a general gist for what most people on either side kind of think. So we're going to start with the people that are actually for it, and think it's okay. Now this first one is something a lot of people actually said, and they said that it's good for showing that venomous snakes are not malicious. People are saying it's really good for that because you're giving it probably the most opportunities you possibly could for it to bite you, but it's not. The next point is that it's more likely to get the attention of casual observers because of the shock value of it. So you can reel in people that you otherwise wouldn't, then proceed to educate them. Kind of like what, Steve Irwin did. That's a good example of this. Now, one thing I actually heard from a few people is that in some instances, freehandling is an easier and safer method. I don't really know how I feel about that. I guess maybe, but once again, we'll get more into that later. The next one is probably the most common one, and it's just that, people should be able to do what they want. Who am I to tell you what you can and can't do? It's my life, let me do what I want with it. And that was probably the most common argument in favor of allowing freehandling to be a thing. So the next one a few people said was that more people get bit from handling venomous snakes in other ways that are classified as traditional ways that you would handle them, as opposed to freehandling where not as many people get bit. Now, this is just what people have been saying. I don't have like a data sheet that says this, but I have actually noticed that anecdotally over time, and I feel like that's kind of where people are coming at from this. So more on that later. Next point, and the last point in favor of freehandling. People learn to do inherently dangerous things all the time, so what makes learning how to freehandle venomous snakes any different? So they're basically categorizing it as an art form, basically, and they're saying like, if you've got someone over here that's learning how to be a NASCAR driver, which is extremely dangerous, people die from doing it all the time, if you've got people that are allowed to do stuff like this, well then why am I getting so much crap for trying to learn how to free handle a venomous snake if I'm putting in the right training and, you know, credentials and all that stuff beforehand to avoid as much risk as possible. So that's the final main argument in favor of free handling. So now let's go into the opposing side and kind of see what they've got to say. Probably the most common one is that it's excessively dangerous and there's really no significant payoff to it. The risk outweighs the reward is basically what they're saying. Now next, if somebody gets bit while doing it, it makes the community look bad. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think you can understand where people are coming from there. Next, there's no point to it. There's no, you know, logical and sensical reason to be doing it, is what a lot of people said against it. Next, most people do it to glorify themselves and not to educate people. They're basically just saying, oh, you know, look at me, I'm so cool, I can handle this rattlesnake like I would a corn snake and I'm perfectly fine. Look at me, I'm cool. Okay, that's basically what that point is saying. The next point I saw a lot of is inexperienced people will see it and then try to replicate it and then in turn get bit. There's actually a pretty interesting rebuttal for that I will bring up later, but that's another big point that people against it have used. The next one is that other methods of handling like tailing or, you know, pinning are safer, and why even bother free handling when you've got all these other safer methods that exist and are professionally used. Just, you know, resort to those instead of this really, really inherently risky one. So that's another thing people, you know, would say about that. So this last general argument against it is actually pretty interesting. It's basically saying people who get bit while doing it may cause more restrictive laws to be made for venomous keepers. Okay, so they're saying that, you know, because I don't know how many of y'all watching actually keep venomous snakes or not, but there is a lot of very, very tight restrictions and regulations, and there's a lot of hoops you gotta jump through to get there. You know, you've gotta mean it. You know, you don't just pick up a cobra and think, oh, you know, I don't have to jump through any legal hoops to do this. No, you do. So they're basically saying that, you know, if all these people are free handling in the hobby and, you know, you've got all these people getting bit, then the people that are behind the legislature are going to tighten those regulations and laws even further. Okay, so that's basically what that last point is saying. So those are all of the general arguments for and against free handling venomous snakes. Now I'm gonna go ahead and look through some of the comments that y'all graciously provided me with, and I'm going to pick some of them that really, really present specific arguments better than just me rattling off the list does. So let's do that. This first one's interesting because it kind of shows both sides. So here's what this person said. I think it can be useful as a tool to show that snakes aren't aggressive and genuinely piques people's curiosity. It can totally be beneficial as long as it's done in a way that doesn't use fear-mongering. So many people doing it are benefiting in popularity off of people's fear of these animals, so they have no incentive to really educate people. They actually have an incentive to emphasize how dangerous these snakes are because that makes them seem fearless. Okay, so this is interesting because it actually kind of goes into both sides. You know, he's showing that, yeah, it can be used this way, but a lot of people aren't. So here's a good alternative for all the people that aren't using it that way, so, you know, quit doing that and use it in this way instead. So here's another comment from a different person that really depicts a common argument in favor or of indifference to free handling. It's this guy says, honestly, I don't care. If you want to free handle, do it. If you get bit, it's your fault. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. I mean, yeah, like if you get bit, it's your fault. Here's another one that kind of builds off the last one. This person says, honestly, if you know what you're doing and you're confident, just go for it. Obviously, there's a risk factor that is pretty big, but if you want to handle them, just go for it. And don't let other herpers f***ing bully you out of it. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty straightforward. You kind of get the point here. This displays a massive amount of people that are basically saying, who cares? It's their lives, let them do what they want. You know, don't shove your opinion down their throat. If they want to do it, then let them. He then also goes on to say, I'm also not saying free handle every venomous snake, lol. Every snake responds differently to it. That's an interesting thing that I saw a few times, so I thought I would throw that in there. Here's an interesting one. This person says, it is not okay if someone is doing it just for the sake of doing it, but if someone is experienced and wants to interact with the snake that way, people shouldn't get all butthurt over it. I get bites are bad, but people who are uncomfortable with free handling get bit too while following the rules, so it's a bit hypocritical. And that kind of goes into the main argument a lot of people made, like, well, what makes this so different when all these other people get bit while they're, handling snakes in conventional ways, and it doesn't seem like, a lot of people are getting bit while free handling, but it's also apparently a lot more dangerous, so that you can kind of see where people are coming from on that. Now, I do think one of the reasons that people are not getting bitten while free handling could be because there's just not as many people doing it. Now, I obviously don't know that, that's just a theory, but it seems to me like not as many people are actually free handling venomous snakes in comparison to people that, say, tail them. Right? That's total speculation. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just a theory, but it could be an explanation for the difference. Okay, so this next one is a little bit on the side against free handling. This person says, I think it's okay if you have experience, but the problem is that other people follow. I'm sure lots of people were bit after watching the dude from, Call of the Wild Man free handle a copperhead. Okay, so now this opens up a very interesting can of worms. This it makes you question a lot of different things, not just with this particular issue, but with a lot of things regarding social media and your impressionability on, younger people and just people in general that aren't as experienced as you. Okay, so there's a very interesting rebuttal to this that I'm gonna go ahead and read to y'all now, and I'll see what y'all think about it. Okay, so I'm first gonna go ahead and just read what this person said right off the bat. He said, it's perfectly fine so long as you don't bitch about it after you get bit. I also hate the but impressionable minds are looking argument for social media pics. So I thought that was really interesting because that's actually what a lot of people will say not in favor of it. So I asked him to elaborate on that, and this is what he said. He said, I just feel that by signing up for and using social media, you aren't also signing up to be a role model and/or professional herper or keeper. Most people in this community are just ordinary people who are doing all of this for fun. Kids do stupid stuff all the time without having seen some random person on Instagram doing it. Hell, I tried free handling cottonmouths as a kid, and that was before Facebook or Instagram were around. I didn't have to see someone else do it for me to want to try it. I feel that people that make that argument forget that they probably do things in front of kids that other people may find inappropriate. For example, I know someone who is a big anti-free handling advocate for this very reason, yet I've seen him load his kids into the car and drive home after downing more alcohol than I would ever drink before getting behind the wheel. But his main argument against free handling photos is because kids are impressionable and it could make them want to try it and ultimately put them in serious danger if they get bit. I think it's just selectively focusing on certain things you don't want your kids to see. Okay, so that's the interesting rebuttal I was talking about when people would bring up the, oh, well, kids are watching argument because, at whatever point in our lives that we are exposed to social media, we all need to understand that not everybody is going to be doing what is accepted by the majority of people or what is accepted by most professionals, right? I feel like it would be awfully restrictive to say to somebody that you can't post anything online that another kid or, somebody that's easily influenced might watch and be like, ooh, I want to try that, and potentially get hurt or, get in trouble or something like that. If you were to just completely wipe everything of that nature from the internet, well, we wouldn't have a lot of stuff left on the internet, would we now? So I get what he's saying, because it's like, you can't hold everybody to that high of a standard, and people, when they go on the internet, they need to understand that, just because they see someone else doing something doesn't mean that they should also try it. So that's an interesting rebuttal to that other argument. This next one is short, sweet, and to the point. It just says, you're putting yourself through unnecessary risk. Very big blanket statement, most people that are against this agree with what this person is saying here. So this next one brings up a point in this comment that I sort of understand but also sort of don't. So let's read it. Now, I can't say it's safe, but I've built a connection with these creatures. I prefer to handle them with a snake stick, but there are some scenarios where it's easier, maybe even safer, to free handle a snake. I have a love for these creatures that not many people have, and it bothers me when people tell me I can't interact with my friends in the woods. Okay, so the part where I'm like a little bit, I don't know, is where he's saying it's sometimes, easier and safer to free handle. Now, I just don't know about that, because really the only scenario that I can think of where it would be easier and maybe safer to free handle a venomous snake is if you have a absolutely massive, rattlesnake, or just a really, really long and thick-bodied venomous snake, because that can be pretty hard to hook properly. Sometimes you really do need that extra amount of control and support with both of your hands. I can sort of understand why that might be an applicable situation, but really, just in most cases, I just can't really think of a lot of situations where it's safer to free handle as opposed to just, tailing or something like that, or just using a hook. But if y'all have any ideas, feel free to leave it down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Okay, so I'm gonna end the comments section on one that I really appreciated. So this one, it says this: I think it's just the same as shooting a gun, or rock climbing, or welding, or anything along those lines. It's inherently dangerous, sure, but there's no reason why someone can't learn how to do it safely and know how to prevent mishaps. I really like that, because he's right. Just because something's dangerous, does it really mean that if we want to learn how to do it, we can't? So the premise of this is basically, like I said earlier, it's categorizing this kind of like an art form, right? And the people like Chandler and Tyler and all those people who religiously free handle their snakes are living proof of this. Because if it didn't take some amount of skill and experience and knowledge of body language and all this different stuff, and all the people that free handle venomous snakes are just stupid, egotistical morons, then how are these people still alive? Now, I know some of them have been bit. Tyler had his king cobra bite. But yeah, you can't deny it. There is some amount of artistry that kind of goes along with it. And, not just anyone with any amount of brain cells can go and pick up a venomous snake and expect the same results as these people that have been doing it for years. There is some amount of artistry that goes with it, so I like that. Okay, so now comes the time y'all have all been waiting for. What do I personally think of free handling venomous snakes? I'm not against it. I'm not a serious advocate for it. I kind of just fall somewhere in the middle. So here's how I think about it. I think there's, two different sort of categories when it comes to free handling that really are important. You've got free handling that you just do without a camera, you're just doing it out in the woods for fun because you want to. That, I'm all for it. If you want to do that, and you have the right experience, if you've done your studying and you've been at it for a long time and you want to just have an experience with it in that way, then that's your life, man. I'm not one to stand in your way. Just don't go blaming the snake if you get bit, So, and also if you get bit, don't put a giant social media YouTube video thing about it, because then a lot of people that don't know any better are going to assume that that's what everyone in the hobby does, and whether you like it or not, most people that don't know any better, which is a lot of people, are just gonna think, wow, you're stupid, this hobby is stupid, everyone that's in it is stupid. So that's the thing. If you avoid social media, then I think, heck, do whatever you want. Now, I think it's a little bit different when you're posting it on social media. I think you need to be a little more careful. What I think people should do if they are going to film themselves free handling, I think you should always put a disclaimer that is basically saying that, hey, look, I'm choosing to do this myself. This is not how most people choose to handle venomous snakes. This is just something that I do. It requires a lot of experience and knowledge, so I don't recommend you try it yourself without that. And that way, more casual audiences will kind of understand, okay, this isn't a blanket reflection of the whole community. So that's kind of how I feel about it when you're posting it. I don't think that people that free handle, whether they post it or not, are stupid. Okay, I think that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. So if there was anything I would say to Chandler or Tyler or Chris, keep doing you. I like what you're doing, you're educating the public, that's great. It's really hard for me to hold something against you when you're just trying to display the animals in a positive light. So, as long as you're doing that, I'm in full support of you, and just be careful. You know, we would hate to see something happen to y'all, and stay safe, and keep doing what you do. Alright guys, well that is my full take on the issue of free handling venomous snakes. No matter what end of the spectrum you're on, I hope you can leave this video kind of having a bigger picture on the matter and maybe being able to understand each side better. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for your participation. For all of y'all that wrote in the comments, I couldn't have really done this video to the same quality as it is now without y'all, so thank you so much. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, whatever it may be. So peace.